Hello everyone, it's me Clayton. I just finished watching A Babysitter's Guide to Monster Hunting, directed by Rachel Talalay, the same woman behind Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare, and Tank Girl, and written by the author of the book series of the same name, Joe Ballerini. Now, when it comes to these Halloween-themed films, that definitely has the same effect as Hubie Halloween, in the sense that a lot of us are wondering if we're even going to have a Halloween this year, given COVID. So it's nice to have some new Halloween films to help fill in the void and give us some of that spirit. And that's definitely what this film does, with its imagination and with a lot of its creative creature designs, and the fact that, from what I've heard, it does bring the spirit of the original book series to life. It's essentially, you could say, Goosebumps for a new generation. Well, let's get to the story, shall we? The story is about Kelly, a girl who was haunted by the boogeyman in her youth, and who was mocked at school for the incident. She has to look after a young boy named Jacob on Halloween night, only to find that he's been taken by the Grand Guignol, played by Tom Felton, aka Draco Malfoy. She ends up teaming up with a babysitter from a secret organization of babysitters that hunt down monsters, and Liz and Kelly have to save Jacob, defeat the Grand Guignol, and also Kelly has to learn a little bit about the monsters she's fighting on the way. So when it comes down to the film, it does have a fairly typical 80s or 90s kids monster movie adventure setup. And it definitely doesn't stray too far from that throughout its 90-minute runtime. But the characters are actually rather likable, and there's a lot of imagination to go into the film. For example, I do love a lot of the creature designs, even if the CGI does definitely remind you that this is a Netflix film with a Netflix budget. But despite the effects being, iffy at times, the creativity behind the computer-generated imagery is pretty good, and it honestly does make for a lot of fun action scenes. Plus, the child actors that are included throughout most of the film are actually really solid, and you believe what they're going through quite a bit. Even the young boy who plays Jacob's pretty decent, which is not often to say for child actors of his age. But probably the best actor of the film is Tom Felton, who really gets to ham it up as the Grand Guignol. He's essentially the boogeyman in every sense of the word, and I have no idea where that guy has been for a while, but I am glad he's having fun with the role and playing a over-the-top villain the way only he can do it. Though, between this and the bad guy from Old Guard, what is it with former Harry Potter actors going into Netflix movies? I don't know. But what I do know is that the film's humor is actually pretty good as well. Whereas Hubie Halloween had a lot of gross-out jokes that could easily get on people's nerves, the jokes here, while they definitely do feel Disney Channel in some ways, they definitely feel good, like they could get a chuckle out of you from time to time. And the characters don't really rely on typical tropes that you see all the time. I mean, they do seem like typical tropes when you see them, but they're well-done versions of those tropes. Even when it includes Liz having a dark backstory about someone she lost, which informs her serious personality that she has in the film, and even though the film does have its pop culture songs during its montages, and even a to-be-continued style ending that is practically begging for a sequel, it still manages to be a fun monster mash in its own right. And I have no idea if it's going to get enough money to justify making a sequel, but I wouldn't mind seeing one after this one. So I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10. See you next time.